All right, welcome punters. We are going to be discussing the 2020 Brownlow Medal. I'm here with the Professor, Mr. Michael Bailey. Thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Your name is infamous not only on the Betfair Hub, where you've been contributing your Brownlow predictions each year, but as a previous bookmaker in a previous life. Your name used to pop up on my screen, and I knew I had the price wrong. If it was Dream Team, if it was a Brownlow Medal, I knew I had to turn the price off. So I'm sure there's plenty of bookies out there watching, knowing that can validate and share that you know what you're talking about when it comes to the Brownlow.
Yeah, it's just a passion of mine. I particularly enjoy it, and it sort of lends itself to mathematical modelling, which is something I particularly enjoy. So.
And how long have you had your Brownlow model up for? Do you reiterate it each year?
Yeah, look, mine's been probably up and running for about 20 years. I try to improve upon it every year. Comes Brownlow time, or towards the end of the season, I generally try to tinker with it in some way, shape or form to iron out some of the kinks that have developed over time.
Right.
So.
And have you got more of an edge now, or was it back in the old days when you were the first person to have a Brownlow model? Was the edge even bigger then?
Look, early in the piece, my models were. I guess it's a learning curve over time, but what I've found is over probably the last 10 years, the Brownlow's become far more predictable, and I don't know why it is. I put it down possibly to the fact that there's 3 umpires now. There's less likely that there's mistakes that come up or anomalies in the voting patterns, and as much as the umpires say that they don't look at the players' stats for each game. Obviously, if you're getting 40 touches, the umpire's more likely to see you. Plus, also, I reckon if you're walking off the MCG, they have the player stats flashed on the screen at any given point in time.
Yeah.
And it's also the historical abuse that umpires get if they miss a player that got 45 votes and for some reason they don't put him in the top 3.
Yep.
Then further down the track, they receive criticism for that. So I would think that they'd be naive to not at least consider the stats in some way, shape or form, whether it be consciously or subconsciously.
Beautiful. Now, we're going to talk about a bunch of players that everyone's going to be interested in. Might as well start with last year's champion, Nat Fyfe, a second Brownlow medal that he won. You predicted him to finish on top 27 votes with Patrick Dangerfield, was your prediction. You've picked out the last 6. That was the only one that is a dead heat in terms of your predictions, but he was $8 in the market. I unfortunately was on Dangerfield, chips in at $7.50. Into about $2.50 on Brownlow night, and Fyfe just does what he does, which is pole more than any player ever.
Yeah, based on the historical averages, he's the best player to ever play the game. There's only 2 players that average more than a vote a game, and he's one of them now. He was behind Hayden Button, and now he's in front of him. So, he's just a champion player. I suspect he also floats under the radar a little bit, being in Fremantle. Over here in Victoria, we don't give the Freo games as much love as perhaps we should, and often they're played on a Sunday afternoon, 4:30, 5 o'clock. People don't tend to notice him. I think there was probably a couple of other things that went on last year. He had an injury towards the end of the year, and he missed a week. Mm-hmm. So there's always speculation that, okay, how is he going to play after that injury? I think he actually missed 2 weeks for injury throughout the year. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty remarkable effort to win the Brownlow and still miss a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think when he won his last Brownlow, he might have missed 4 weeks. So
that's outrageous.
So, he just polls votes. And the other thing which I think is interesting, first of all, he's a captain. Mm-hmm. So he's obviously shaking hands with the umpire at the start of the game, and they're looking to him and talking to him. But also that armband that he wore a big arm sleeve, a big black arm sleeve.
Yeah, it looked like a pro wrestler. Had the hair going.
And he's such an amazing mark. And he, if he's got his hands up in the air taking a mark, and you're seeing this big black arm sleeve, it's impossible for him to be missed, I reckon, from the umpire. So it didn't really come as any great surprise.
So this year, though, is there a sense of fatigue when someone wins a Brownlow, particularly 2, and has the stats that you just mentioned? Are umpires aware of that going into the next season? Say, hey, this Fyfe love, we got to slow this down a little bit.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting point, and I've thought a little bit about it over the years, and I've looked back and done a little bit of research at how Brownlow medalists have gone the year after they've won the Brownlow.
Yep.
And there's some situations whereby they do get less votes than expected, and then other situations whereby they still get more votes than expected. So The problem is I've only got 20 years worth of data. It might take 100 years worth of data to be able to really tighten that one down.
Yeah.
But, he's the best player in the competition, so you'd have to rate him right up there.
Do you ever play into any of that? Like, there's theories each year, and I remember when Dane Swan, he was predicted to have that great Brownlow, didn't get anything, and then the next year he just overpolls. Do you pay any attention to any of those? He's due, all that sort of stuff?
Not so much he's due, but I certainly look into it. I remember the year when Swanee didn't get quite as many votes. I went back and looked at all the games that he played, and in all those games it was Pendlebury getting the 3s, and he was getting the 2s. So there was a perception that, okay, the umpires are more likely to give Pendlebury the votes than they are Swan.
Yeah.
And then the next year it just swapped around. Instead of him getting all the 2s, he got all the 3s, and Pendlebury was getting all the 2s. So it's one of those things that's, it's a little bit difficult to predict.
Right.
So, but look, I'm always trying to improve on the models if I can. If I can find some evidence, some statistical evidence or some mathematical way to incorporate certain features into the model, then I'll do it. And then you go back and look and see if that variable is historically predictable and independently predictive of the outcome. And if it is, then you found a way to improve the quality of your model.
Yeah, beautiful. And just wrapping up on Fyfe, what's your predictions at the moment on Betfair? He's trading somewhere between $7 and $8, which he was on Brownlow night last year. What are you predicting from him this season?
Well, I mean, if he's fit and he goes through without any suspensions, then there's no reason why he won't play the same level that he played this year. So I think there's 4 or 5 guys that you'd have to guarantee, but there's so many things that can go wrong throughout the course of a season. I don't think you can start any of those players shorter than that sort of price. Until some of the sort of evidence of how they go comes in.
And he's a big one where there's that small suspension risk or missing a few games. So he's one that's just built into the price. That's why there's extra fat.
Yeah. And look, another thing you got to consider about Fyfe is, and it's applicable to Tom Mitchell. You worry about if a player breaks a leg, can they ever come back and play to the standard that they played previously? Ordinarily, I would say no, they can't. But Fyfe broke a leg and he came back and he won another Brownlow. So outrageous. It goes to show that it can be done. I think Vossi came back from a broken leg and he still managed to poll some Brownlow votes and play well after that.
Win a couple of flags.
But so it'll be interesting to see how Tom Mitchell goes. This year.
Okay. Yeah, his price at the moment is between sort of $12 and $15 on the exchange. That's
last time he played, he was a Brownlow medalist. So you can't ignore him.
Yeah, this is a genuine Group 1 field, this. And at the top, Patrick Cripps, which to me seems too short, but our analyst on the Betfair Hub, who is really strong with his Brownlow content, he's tipping Cripps. Someone else that I really respect said Cripps at $6 is a bet. Seems too short to me. But people are predicting more wins out of Carton, I suppose.
It's probably not going to matter too much. Cripps undoubtedly will poll votes, unless he gets injured. The only time he hasn't poll votes is when he had problems with injury. So provided he can stay fit, he's guaranteed to poll votes. I mean, he's a class act. Hopefully Carlton might win a few more games, which might help influence things. But I think Cripps out of all the current players, he's actually the player that has the highest average votes in a losing team. So, it may not, although the difference between what he polls in a winning team, so he averages 1.2 votes in a winning team, Cripps, and 0.6 of a vote in a losing team. So, if they win more games, theoretically you should get more votes. So.
He's a hard one. I can't put a finger on it. I feel like I'm gonna stay out, and I'll probably regret it if Carlton win a few. And he keeps crunching. His size and the fact that he's hard to tag, the reason that he just sort of stands out as well.
Undoubtedly. I mean, he's a bull.
He's a monster.
There's no stopping him. He knows how to get the ball, but he knows how to control games. And he just knows how to get votes. So, but there's probably 5 blokes that are all, you can group them all together, I think. Fyfe, Dangerfield. Danger's averages 0.9 votes a game. He's polled 20 odd votes for the last half dozen years. He's always going to be there. He's always going to play well. Dustin Martin's just an out-and-out champion if he decides he wants to play well. And he's another one where suspension might be an issue. But, he had 7 BAGs last year and they were all just clear-cut BAG,
Clear.
so he's getting 20 votes.
Yeah.
Bontmpelli and Cripps.
Yeah, right. So you put Bont in that top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's in that zone. I think what happens, most AFL players tend to improve in their performance over roughly around about the first 100 games.
Yep.
And there's no hard and fast rule.
Okay.
Some players might start a little bit earlier with their progression, but generally most players will improve over about that first 100 games.
Okay.
Then they tend to plateau out for roughly the next 100 games, and then gradually their output will start to decline a little bit from a Brownlow perspective.
Okay.
So you might get blokes like Tim Kelly, who's only played 2 games of AFL football, but he's a mature age. So, he might be on a little bit of an accelerated learning curve. I used to have problems with Gary Ablett. The first 100 games he played, he was on a flank and in a pocket. And then they got him fit and moved him into the midfield. And he went from getting 18 to 20 touches a game to getting 30 touches a game. So instead of going like this, he's just taken this massive jump. So and it's always the players that, from a modelling perspective, it's the players that take a massive big jump up that are always the hardest ones to model.
Right. And that's, so normally you see that in that 100 to 200 game sort of range, or just tipping over to 100, or maybe a positional change, or... Yeah,
look, there's no perfect rule. You can't apply this rule and say, okay, you haven't played 100 games, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
But, as a general rule over the all time, that's just basically how it works. Players get better over a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Then their ability to improve stops. They maintain that level. And then generally once they deteriorate in their quality, then the club gets rid of them. So, or they play a different role. So.
Yeah, okay. Just going back to Danger for a second, do you think, Tim Kelly polled 20-something votes last year. Do you think his departure lends itself, and I think Geelong got another pretty soft draw. What do you think of his chances?
Yeah, well, he averages 0.9 votes a game. The big difference with Danger... There's some stats on him. He actually averages the highest number of votes per game at home.
Right.
So and Fyfe is number 2 there, Ablett number 3.
Wow.
So he averages 1.1 vote a game at home, whereas in the when he's playing away, he only averages around about 0.7 votes a game. So at home ground, he's one of those players that might lift when the crowd inspires him. I certainly remember one game against Hawthorn. I'm a Hawthorn supporter where he got injured, and I was cheering, going, because he always plays well against us. Where I think he averages the most votes against Hawthorn than any other team. Yeah. And he was injured, and thought, he's off the bench, he's buggered here. Yeah. Sure enough, they go and plonk him down at full forward, and he kicks 5-6 goals.
That's what I thought. He kicked 6 that day. That was cemented his legacy for me. That's obscene.
As to whether, there's...
$9-10 on Betfair at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of opposed to outlaying your money 26 weeks before you get a result. Just there's too many things that can happen. And Danger, he's sort of he's past that. I was going to say, have to. But he still polls votes. He's one of those players that's been able to maintain his average. So, but it's unlikely that he's going to spike up. It's unlikely that he's going to get any better. Yeah.
20, okay.
But he'll certainly be there and about. So, I'd back him top 10, no worries at all.
He cooked me last year, still filthy. So just on the Bont, quickly then, the Dogs, obviously really competitive last year with McRae and Dunkley polling late.
Yep.
But you think Bont's the standout of the trio, and a good dog year could mean he's good value?
Yeah, if he got fit and, he's in that zone, 100 to 200 games, and he's a unique player in that he was able to poll votes in his very first year. Yeah. So I think the thing with him is consistency, and whether it's fitness. He's obviously got the ability to stand out, and I think from memory, he also polls a lot more threes than he does 2s and 1s. Right. So if he plays well, the umpires are more inclined to want to give him the votes. Yeah. Whereas to be able to take the votes off him, players have got to play really well. Right. They've got to play exceptional games. So, I would just put all these guys in the top 10. You're not going to know. You need to find out how the season's starting to pan out as to, whether you're going to consider them to be better than that. So
let's touch on that briefly. We spoke before. You normally chime in. You wait and see until the sample size of the season's big enough. Potentially a few people have fallen over through injury, suspension, bad form. you wait until 14, 15 later in the season, rounds in, before you have a bet?
Oh, look, I keep an eye on it. It just depends on what options are available, but generally, any players that are in the market, the market's generally sort of onto it early.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile speculating, but so there's no hard and fast rules. But typically I wouldn't put a bet on at the start of the season, just because there's too many things that can go wrong, whether it's injuries or
we're trying to get turnover here, so don't listen to him, punters. Just let's try and take overs, and we'll chime in with Michael's set later on. You get the Michael truth later in the season, but let's bet early, and we'll try and get some value. Let's talk about the GWS boys. Who of those stand out to you this season, or is that a wait and see proposition as well? There's so much competition in the midfield. Yeah,
there is, and they've got blokes in their team that are clearly vote catchers. So Caniglio did well. For some reason, I haven't been able to work it out yet. Taranto, when I went back and put the data in from this year and rerun the models, general models are fairly stable for with having, so there's very little overfit by including this data. Generally the predictions are very similar.
Right.
But there was one player that just jumped up, and it was Taranto, and I don't know why, and he didn't poll as many votes as I had him expected to this year. So I don't know what's going on there. I might have to go back and do a little bit more research. But Josh Kelly's obviously a class act, and he polls votes. And Green, I don't think Green will ever win a Brownlow. I think he's too prone to injury, suspension, and I don't think they're ever going to play him consistently in the midfield, which I think you need to be these days to be able to win a Brownlow.
Okay, so we might come back to that in a second. So of the GWS boys, if you're having a bet, probably Caniglio or Kelly, not Whitfield, not Taranto.
Probably not Taranto. I would probably lean towards Kelly.
Okay.
But Whitfield, they're classy footballers, and they're all in that zone, voting zone.
Yeah, your sweet spot.
And they're all playing on the ball. So
tough draw, I think, GWS this year.